screen, but I'll wait a few minutes.
Bree, I'm just going to let you tell me when you're ready.
Okay. I'll just wait until maybe 10:31 to see if anybody trickles in.
Give it a couple minutes.
Yeah. All right, I will go ahead and get started. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'll just go ahead and introduce myself for those who don't know. My name is Brianna White, and I'm a community development specialist at the Northern Kentucky Area Development District. And I've been working in this position for about 4 months now. So I'm currently transitioning into the Sorry, hold on. People are waiting in the lobby. Let me see if I can let them in. Alicia, are you able to let people in? Okay, perfect. All right. I am transitioning into the project manager role for our Brownfield program. And then also joining us is Alicia Chamberlain from the NKADD district and Charles Leachman from Tetra Tech, and also Sarah Allen from the Center for Great Neighborhoods, who has been a past recipient of the funding, and they will all have a chance to introduce themselves and answer any questions after our introductory presentation. And a couple things before we get started. We are going to have a Q&A session. So you can see the Q&A icon at the top next to the 3 little dots, and you can put your question in the text box. Your microphones will be off during this time, but after the presentation, there will be an option to turn those on. And then if you do have any issues accessing any of these features, just send a quick chat and let us know and we can help you out.
Just some quick housekeeping. Can you all hear me? Hi, this is Alicia Chamberlain. We did get invites out a little bit late for this event, and we do have some folks trickling in. I have already spoke to several individuals. We do plan to record this, as Brianna stated. We're going to be sharing this on our website, and we will be sending this out to anyone who asks for the link. We want to make sure this information's out there. This is more than just inviting you all to meet our new project manager and to reacquaint you with Charles Leachman. It's also to let you know about some funding that we've recently received, and also for those who haven't experienced working with Brownfields yet, some of the opportunities and resources we have for you here at the Northern Kentucky NKADD. If you are some of our folks from across the river, first off, hooday. But if you're from across the river, even though we can't necessarily serve you, I do want you to know that the Port Authority does have brownfield funding. I believe Chris Meyer is the project manager for those funds at the Port Authority. I think there's some other resources depending where you're at. I am happy to still answer questions for you, and Brianna will also be able to, she's kind of still like getting her feet wet, but she can also help you out. So don't hesitate to call us. We'll point you in the right direction of who can help you on your side of the river, okay?
All right, so starting off our discussion with what are brownfields? A brownfield site will be any property that is known or even perceived to be contaminated. Maybe there used to be a laundromat on the site or manufacturing facilities, even certain agricultural developments that may have used pesticides or other chemicals in production, any abandoned structures that may have lead paint or asbestos contamination, landfills, riverfront properties, and these are just a few of the general examples. And then a few examples of current or redeveloped brownfields in northern Kentucky that are all pictured below are the Ludlow Train Viewing Station, the Lincoln Grant Scholar House, the Donaldson Sign Company, which has since been demolished and is now just a vacant lot, and the Ludlow Incinerator, which is the abandoned structure of the old garbage incinerator. And then cleaning up a brownfield site can mean overall improved environmental quality with cleaner natural resources such as air and water. It can also support job growth and save money on redevelopment or retrofit projects. If brownfield sites are left underutilized or vacant, they can definitely contribute to safety hazards as well as decrease the value of surrounding properties. And the revitalization process is actually pretty straightforward, with first identifying an eligible property. And then we will assess the environmental conditions with phase 1 and phase 2 assessments. Cleanup of the property if needed, or taking measures to make sure that reuse is actually possible. And lastly, redevelopment or whatever use is seen fit for that site in the end. And then these are just really helpful graphics that break down the phase 1 and phase 2 environmental assessments. Phase 1 will ultimately be a paper trail with some site history, and phase 2 is more in depth with collecting samples and further investigations. And Charles will be able to have the opportunity later to discuss these more in depth and answer any questions that you might have. And when it comes to cleaning up any brownfield site, the amount of cleanup needed is based primarily on the intended end use. So if the resulting use is going to be a residential development or maybe a green space that families will actively utilize, there will be a much stricter cleanup guideline in place. But for industrial or some commercial uses, generally less cleanup will be needed for those. So how do we make it all happen? Here at the NKADD district, we have a couple different funds available that include the phase 1 and phase 2 assessments, which will be completed by Tetra Tech. And we also operate a brownfield cleanup revolving loan fund to assist in cleanup of properties. And for further assistance and moving forward with any of these funds, please contact me at my phone number or email listed below. And I will also post both of those in the chat box so that you can easily access them. And lastly, I wanted to touch on eligibility again. The funding is available for private and public developers, local governments, and nonprofit organizations. So as long as you have a site with perceived presence of contamination, you are an eligible recipient. And it's also important to note that there is no formal application. You just simply reach out to us and we will discuss those next steps with you. And that is the end of my slides. So if Alicia wanted to add anything, maybe about the program history, or if there was something that I might have missed, I will hand that over to you.
Bree, thank you. Actually, I think what we're going to do, and we apologize. So our moderator situation kind of got messed up with COVID. We have a sick individual. So you get me as your moderator and a panelist. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first introduce Charles and Sarah, let them tell you a little bit about themselves, and then I'll give you some history on the background. Charles can talk to you about some of the work we've done, and then Sarah's going to tell us an awesome story about her experience working with the Brownfields program. After that, we have some Q&A. We do have some questions that have already been sent in, but please feel free, as Brianna stated before, to add other questions you have in the question box. So I'm going to start off by saying thank you, everybody, for coming. You guys can take a drink of water every single time I say Hooday, because I'm going to pepper it in every chance I get. Moving on from that, I want to introduce Charles Leachman with Tetra Tech. Charles, do you want to discuss kind of like your very long-term and successful history working with the ADD and the Brownfield program?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much, Alicia, and everyone on the call today for your time to be with you today. My name's Charles Leachman. I'm a senior geologist with Tetra Tech. I've been fortunate enough to be the environmental consultant project manager with Northern Kentucky Area Development District for over 8 years now. That's kind of dates me. I'm kind of more of the senior citizen now on this kind of, instead of just a newbie. But I'm very fortunate to be able to work with this group to try to be a partner with many of the groups in Northern Kentucky, from the city municipalities, the counties, and then also private developers and their groups and citizens, South Bank Partners, Triad, many different groups that we've partnered with in the past. Sarah's group, I don't want to tread too much, take any of her thunder, but their group's an outstanding contributor as well. We've partnered with them on several very important projects. The 311 Orchard Street's one that I kind of became introduced into this group through that project. Was a significant project and still is, really. If you go through that street, it's remarkable what it was. If you see the photographs, what it was before, what it is now, and really what it represents to the community as far as taking an eyesore and really returning it into a productive use for the community. That's really what we're about, and using this funding as a mechanism to do that. The municipalities, developers are obviously in a situation to have strapped funding for many different things in their communities, and we've been successful. Our group, Northern Kentucky Area Development District, has been successful in writing long-term, and really Alicia is the person who spearheaded that, probably around the 2010 timeframe-ish, I think, and really spearheaded the application process. And that's not a guarantee. Many municipalities, groups try to get this funding, and Northern Kentucky has been very successful in that. And the recognition that I take from all this really is the repeat awards that have been created and really shown that we have been doing what the grant has been asking. What does the grant ask? The EPA grant asks that we work with many different folks in the communities, which we've done, and complete phase ones, complete phase twos, and then also be the resource that Northern Kentucky Area Development District is in many different facets, and be such is for the Brownfield area, because people have questions about that. You know, that there's a state component. The Kentucky Brownfield program is an outstanding program as well, and we've been able to partner a few projects with that as well. And it's really trying, and you folks probably recognize that each site is specific. It has different parameters based upon whatever you're trying to accomplish with it, trying to redevelop it, and making it fit with your budgetary strengths, your reuse constraints is what we try to do. We try to be a partner for those groups. I've talked quite a bit. I don't know if you want me to talk about any specific projects right now, but I'd like Sarah to get her chance as well. So I'll stop there. So, thanks.
Thank you, Charles. And yes, we're going to move on to the lady that is, first off, Sarah Allen's one of my favorite people in Northern Kentucky. She has been working with Center for Great Neighborhoods for a while. She's going to tell you about that. She does amazing work serving the community. She's also somebody I think that most of us look to for kind of inspiration and a little bit of mentorship. She also wears fabulous glasses. So Sarah, if you want to say hello.
Okay, thanks. Nice introduction. Hi, I'm Sarah Allen. I work at the Center for Great Neighborhoods. I do a lot of different things here, but my biggest focus is economic development. And so this has been a great program. I try to recommend it to as many folks as possible. And I'll give you a specific way that we have used it. So we are a community development corporation that's been around for 40 plus years. We do physical development and we also do a lot of civic engagement. The particular project that we worked on with them, the first one was, I think it was like 2013, 2014. We are working in a community called the West Side Community of Covington. And at the time, it's not that now, but there was a kind of a portion in the middle of this neighborhood that was really run down. The city had purchased a lot of the properties because it had had a lot of drug and crime activity. And so subsequently, so then there were also these 6 shotgun, kind of classic shotgun houses on that street. And some people thought they were trailers. Everyone wanted them torn down, but we were familiar enough that we knew, we like historic buildings. We're like, there is a lot of potential in these. And so my background is working a lot with artists. And so we looked at what the zoning was. We realized we could do live workspace in that artists could live and work in these shotguns. And so we applied for a national grant from Kresge Foundation, got it. And so to kind of help instigate live workspace for artists. Where the Brownfield comes in is, so next to all of these shotguns, there was I guess it was before my time, but it had been a dump, kind of a local dump. Everyone would bring their stuff to this lot. So we knew we had to get this lot. It was adjacent to the shotguns. We weren't sure what we were going to do with it at the time, but we knew it was critical for making this block what it could be. So kind of fast forward, we heard, and we knew it was a brownfield because of what had been there. We weren't sure exactly what was there. And at the time, we found out that the ad had this brownfield money to start looking at what we could do there. And I want to and do a phase 1 and subsequently a phase 2. I want to say why, and I will say this is one of, I don't usually get excited about parking lots, but this parking lot is like the most exciting parking lot to me. And so what happened ultimately is we turned it into a parking lot. And the reason I think it's great is because with the shotguns, the way their footprint was, or is, we're not on the East Coast. People expect parking when they're purchasing a house. So we knew we had to provide some type of parking besides street parking. And so but we also knew people wanted a small kind of backyard space. So what this allowed us to do by redoing this brownfield into a parking lot, which was right adjacent to the shotguns, we were able to give everyone a space if they wanted it, parking space, and then keep their back area for a yard as opposed to parking. The other great thing, so there were findings in the phase 1, phase 2. The ad district was so easy to work with, and with all the consultants like Charles, et cetera, everyone we worked with, it was just, we didn't have to do a lot. They kind of took it once we said, hey, we want to do something here. They kind of ran with it. And so there were findings in the phase 2. And at the time, what's easiest to remediate as far as like if you're building housing on a brownfield, and here's where I'm going to get into the technical that Charles might have to stop me on, but from what I understand, you have to do a significant amount more remediation if someone is living on there. But if you're capping it for a parking lot, it's a little bit, easier to do. And so that's why it was also a good solution for this site, is that we could turn it into a parking lot and it wouldn't be as costly to kind of remediate it. So that was ultimately what happened. I think at the time, and I don't know if that's still available right now, I think that's maybe more up in the air, is there was some remediation money. So we were able to get that parking lot. The only thing we ended up having to pay for were these like concrete curb. I don't even know what the technical term is for them, but there were like a few little things we couldn't pay for. But it's there, it's a parking lot. And now that neighborhood, if you go there, is completely really transformed. That we're about to start a development partnership with someone, local developer across the street. And so parking is actually starting to become really critical. And so we actually are having, like, it's been used somewhat, but as there's more housing and we've just added some businesses on the corridor, there's more parking needs. So this has actually become even more of an asset for us. And we're trying to talk internally as how we manage it, because we have to start, I think there's, can't remember, I think there's like, I should know this, like 14 spaces, but like we're going to start leasing them out. So anyway, it's a real success story for us. And now we just are looking at doing another parking lot. Potentially we're getting a phase 1 done on our parking lot next to where our offices are. So I will stop there.
Sarah,
Great program.
I love your energy, Sarah. It always makes me happy, and it makes me happy to know how excited you are about the program.
Oh, Brownfield.
Yeah, no, brownfields for me are like, it's my baby. Brianna's awesome, so handing this off has been an easy thing to do. Coming back to, I'm at the ad temporarily, for those who don't know. If you know that I was here for a long time, I left. Being back and being able to assist Brianna as she transitions on has been a wonderful experience, and it makes me happy to see that the ad has carried on with this awesome program. With that, I kind of want to tell everybody how this program came about. Now that you know what we can do with it. So Sarah just told you how a very small thing, like a very dirty site, and I like to use that term dirty because they're pretty funky, right? You can take these sites that are really debilitating to a block or to a neighborhood, and that really are kind of like maybe one of those last obstacles to revitalizing. And as we talk about place and place making, you have to also heal your wounded areas. So I feel like brownfields are like that antiseptic and that wound healing kit we give you to make sure that you are able to fully implement all your planning and all that hard work and all those community desires and all that engagement that's been happening. As Charles mentioned a very long time ago, and he's actually wrong, so I'm going to age myself here, which always kind of freaks me out. It was like in 2008 when we started working on our first brownfield. I think we applied in October of 2008. As all things with the federal government, it took a little bit of time for us to find out if we were awarded funding. We did find out we were awarded funding in 2009, and I think it was 2010 when we finally started being able to kick off the activities and the work. And that's pretty much the timeline with any kind of government funding you're getting. How this started, the ad district, and I want to make a point of how this started because we can provide the same service to any community that in our service area. We were contacted by the city of Covington, I believe Kenton County and Campbell County, and the city of Newport. There was this kind of overarching effort to create the Licking River Greenway. Licking River Greenway is, I think, still an ongoing effort. They've done beautiful work creating a trail system along the Licking River, cleaning up a lot of the problem areas, making an area accessible in our urban core for our community members in the urban core to get out, enjoy nature, but also visitors to the urban core to get out and kind of see what we have to offer. It's also assisting with the cleanup of the Licking River Greenway, major confluence with the Ohio River. So as they work on that, they're cleaning up the water that's pouring into the Ohio River, which most of us drink out of. So I think that's pretty exciting stuff. And just so you know, there is a concerted effort right now to work on the Licking River Blueway. And I feel like the Greenway was kind of the precursor to that happening. So we were asked by these communities if we could facilitate grant writing, and in the event we were awarded funds, we would be able to help assist in management of the funds. Now, of course, I think we were kind of told it was like a shot in the dark, as Charles mentioned. Receiving brownfield funds is kind of difficult. We put in the application and we were awarded funds. That was kind of a scary moment for me because I was working with Bob Schragi, who was our assistant director at the time at the ad, and it was going to be kind of like my first really big project. And then Bob had retired, and we got the money that we didn't know if we were actually going to get. And so suddenly I had my first big career challenge, and it was such a cool experience watching this grow. The ad district is able to write grants for you. If you want to partner with us, we will administer the grant. Obviously, there are programming or grants management fees that we assess. They are extremely low in cost, much lower than any private agency. We have a history of how we work to hire a contractor instead of hiring a contractor per site. Per funding, we go through our procurement process, which is how we have Charles. Tetra Tech has been doing a wonderful job providing service for us. Charles has been with us. I will say this because I feel like it's important. Prior to Tetra Tech, we did work with LFI, Leinbach Funkhauser. They provided excellent service to us. There is no reason for us to have switched firms other than the fact that we had a very wonderful and innovative environmental engineer in Charles that knew the area so well, and he continues to rank extremely high when we go through these procurement and RFQ processes. So we can assist you with that, or you can also work to go ahead and use whoever we've procured. So we're providing this assistance to you. It's saving you on staff time, and it's assisting you getting the funding you need to either identify sites, assess them, or to clean up, or all three. Moving on from that, I think in total, I'm going to try to make this a little shorter because this is boring for you all, even though I'm super excited about it. I think at this point, we've gotten about 2 million, maybe 2.1 million total. Even though I was fortunate enough to work on getting the first couple rounds of grants, many amazing ad district employees have continued to work on this. Megan Sampson's team is amazing. So I think they've had 4 awards since I left. I think there were 2 while I were here. We've cleaned up many sites. I'm going to let Charles kind of talk to you about some of the most interesting sites. But the key thing I want you to take away from this is the ad district, as Brianna said, does have funding. We have funding right now to assess your hazardous sites. She mentioned that it's about perception. We keep getting these questions about, well, it's a green field, meaning I think that we have some like semantics kind of disparity. Just because you have a lot that looks real pretty and it's empty, if people are like, well, 75 years ago, my grandmother told me that 75 years ago there was a lead paint factory there, then it's a brownfield. Because if that's a community perception and it's keeping people from wanting to either use that area for play or recreation or for redevelopment, that's a brownfield. Call us. It's not going to hurt anything for us to ask Charles to go out and do a phase 1. It's really kind of just like checking out the history of the site. Is this legit? Your grandma's probably right. I have found out that when your elder community members are telling you stories about the past, they're generally spot on. So there's no reason to fear that phase 1. I'm going to let Charles talk to you a little bit about kind of responsibility and what happens. And I can add to that, there were some changes made to the CERCLA, in 2014, 2013, Charles, where responsibility, you shouldn't be afraid to have assessments done because you fear having responsibility for the cleanup. Because at this point, the most important part is for us to encourage you to assess your sites. Let's find out what's there and let's figure out a way to help you. Funding can be used for a variety of things. There are a lot of innovative things you can do with this funding. First off, Charles is really, really interestingly creative. So I always like to listen to him because he'll just start, you tell him there's a project and you think like, oh, well, we thought we could cap it and make it a parking lot. And the next thing you know, he's added 50 things to it. All of them qualify under cleanup because they're kind of like these new emerging innovative practices. And they're also just really cool things to have in your community. Or if it's a private business owner or private property owner, it's something really cool that enhances their business, which also, once again, in turn, supports the community you serve. I'd like to point out that at one point, we were working on a project, and I was actually on the other side of this. I was a recipient working at a different employer with a different employer. And Charles was like, well, if we're doing this, you could add these like historical elements and put up these pictures. And I was like, can I just take you with me everywhere I go? I kind of like to keep Charles. As Sarah mentioned, this little parking lot made a huge difference in the Orchard project. That was a cool project to be a part of and to see happen. I always like to say, like, Center for Great Neighborhoods did awesome things, and I put some like toenail polish on it. That it wasn't just a parking lot though. And Charles is going to tell you a little bit about how I think that we added in some planting, some different ways to mitigate water runoff and ensure that no contaminated water is going to be seeping into our water system. So there's always these innovative practices. It's not, I think everybody thinks you cap it and make it a parking lot. A lot of times that is what you end up doing. It's just the most cost efficient, especially if you're a local government or a nonprofit. You're working with limited resources. As we said, end use is going to dictate level of cleanup. So, I was working for a former employer and there was a site that was a really gnarly, just like super gross brownfield site. And people were like, we want to make it like a park. And I was like, oh, wow. Your kids are going to be like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles if they're playing on that grass. So let's come up with some different end uses. And they're like, well, can't we clean it up to where they can play there? And I was like, if you have like Scrooge McDuck's money bin, you probably could. Otherwise, I think that we got to come up with a new plan. But that's what Charles comes in for. He can assist you with that. Brianna can assist you with that. Like I said, if you're across the river, contact the Port Authority. They can assist you with that. There's different folks that are here to help you if you feel like you're kind of stuck on what to do. And there's also nothing wrong with a parking lot. And this is coming from somebody who highly advocates for pedestrian and bicycle transportation improvements and for less vehicular usage. I don't always advocate for parking, but the truth is we have cars, we need parking. And if this is a way to take a site that has been a problem and make it viable and create a parking lot that isn't just a parking lot, there's nothing wrong with that. So don't fear those things. With that, this program has been going strong for, like I said, I guess since 2009. Oh, wow, that's a long time. We're just going to say it's a really long time. So like 13 years now, we've been going strong with this project. It continues to receive funding. The AD district is going to continue to apply for funding. They will receive more funding. Brianna's going to do great work with that, but Brianna's also going to be available to assist you if you as a community want to apply for cleanup funds. Charles is a resource to us. If you have a site, like a large site you're interested in, you can apply for a large pool of cleanup funds. So please feel free to contact us. As Brianna said, her information's in the chat box. On that note, I'm going to turn this over to Charles, and I'm going to let Charles tell you about some of these things I was discussing as far as like innovative practices and kind of like where he comes in on the process.
Well, I really appreciate that glowing introduction, Alicia, and I'm very thankful to be a part of this group. But you know, I've worked around the state, really around the country, a couple of foreign countries as well during my 20 plus career. And the interesting thing about Northern Kentucky is that there are many municipalities within Northern Kentucky, you know, Fort Thomas and Bellevue and Dayton and Covington and Newport, and I can go on and on and on. But the thing about that is that they're all proud groups. They're all very, proud of where they live and where they belong, and they want the best for their community. And quite frankly, they're very competitive. You know, they want to the best things for their community, and they push for those. And that's why I think that the partnership that Northern Kentucky Area Development District has had with each of these communities has been so strong, is because it's been only positive. I mean, you heard Sarah talking about the awesome project in Covington, and I want to hit on something that Alicia stated previously about that. The dump site, the landfill that she mentioned was egregious. It had just become just kind of a free for all. So we needed to change that, and putting a parking lot on top of that. What was the answer? The interesting thing about that parking lot, it was not just, hey, get your old regular asphalt out and call it a day. This was a semi-permeable asphalt, which allowed for some infiltration of groundwater into the ground. Additionally, the planning and the specs on this particular site allowed for storage, additional storage in different areas of the property to store groundwater over the long term. What does that do? Well, that doesn't put as much stormwater onto the system and kind of overrun the system at times when that's really helpful. The plants there are really meant to not be maintenance heavy at all, if at all, and really give a pleasant aesthetics for the area. Really go in with the artistic community that was planned there. That's done really well there, and that's a portion of that. And I've always thought that this using the shotgun houses with the I think if you purchase one of the shotgun houses, you also get a parking spot or two. It kind of comes with it. So it was kind of a hand in hand use for this. And that's kind of where the brownfields came into that. So I'm really, really proud of that project as well. Moving on, staying in Covington, the Kenton County Courthouse is one site that I think everyone probably on the call knows about. It was the old Bavaria. It was an old Bavarian brewery back in the 1800s. Was a restaurant venue at its latest, and then fell into disrepair. How many people, how many thousands of people every single day came up and down 71, 75 and see that and see it in disrepair and whatnot. And we're like, that's kind of a reflection on Covington. So working with Joe Shriver and his team there in Kenton County, worked through the phase 1 process, which identified certain recognized environmental conditions that were on the property that needed to be addressed. Those included underground storage tanks, asbestos, lead paint. There was also the potential, there was an upgradient dry cleaning site that had been there for a long time. So we were concerned that potentially some of those chemicals could have gotten in the ground and then migrated onto Kenton County's site. They hadn't purchased the property yet, but they were looking to purchase the property as it had been obviously in disrepair. So when we went about that, we completed the phase 1. We did an extensive phase 2, asbestos, soil sampling, groundwater sampling, et cetera, and found multiple items needed to be addressed. We put forth a plan with them to rectify that, to remediate those issues. We did partner with the state's Brownfield program for this site. Why would we do that? We would do that because going through this process allowed Kenton County to receive what's known as a notice of concurrence as part of the state's Brownfield program, which allows newly prospective purchasers to get a long-term environmental liability protection for historical sites. When you look at these brownfield sites, you're not getting, a greenfield site, which is a site that hasn't had any issues. These brownfield sites are ones that are either unknown or known, and you're trying to deal with those. So that's why these programs have partnered to work through these properties. So not only did the Kenton County Fiscal Court take a blighted site, turned it into a center for the community, which is was very needed. The one that had existed was downtown. Parking's tough. We all know tough downtown. So it's right on an accessible corner there in Covington. Everyone sees it. It's been revitalized. What else? It also maintained the historical aspects. If you look at the front of the building, on the left-hand side is a newer facade and structure and whatnot that's nice. On the right-hand side, you'll see the old 1800s portion of the Bavarian Brewery. Really, really cool stuff. I mean, they don't build, it's easy to say, but they don't build stuff like that anymore. And it really goes hand in hand to accommodate, Sarah spoke earlier about trying to preserve some of the historical aspects of the community and whatnot, and they did that here. So that I think that's very important. It's really a long-term win for the community. Going into Newport, if you are on the AA Parkway coming north off 275 coming into Newport on the southwest side of Newport, right at that intersection, there's a roundabout kind of area right there. And right on the left-hand side was a former rail car maintenance area that the New Riff Distillery purchased and have really improved that area from really just kind of being debilitated, hasn't been really updated. Yes, there was some storage and whatnot there in the past, but hadn't taken the absolute best care of it. That's all changed. We completed a phase 1 there. found environmental recognized conditions, underground storage tanks, lead-based paint, asbestos. Those are kind of telltale signs of what we typically find on these type sites. Work with them. New Riff also used the state brownfield component as well. Why? Because there's a lot of skeletons potentially in the closet on sites like these that even with our best efforts, and as an environmental consultant, we do our best effort to try to find any and all issues that could be potentially relevant for a property. The issue is at the time that it may have been an issue, those folks have gone on. They're no longer available to be interviewed or questioned or anything like that. So there's some inherent knowledge that isn't there anymore. So could there be and might there be, and things like that are usually circles that have never been able to be closed before, but using the Brownfield program, we've been able to do that. But that all stems from the NKADD's Brownfield program, which obviously has helped that community and whatnot. And really that kind of makes a stable partner on that southwest side of Newport. That's really important. I think the city of Newport's really looking to revitalize, infuse some capital in projects in that area to make it more viable than it is now. And I think they're well on their way to that. Moving into Bellevue real quickly, there's a couple sites there. We worked on the old Marianne Theater, which is a really neat Art Deco design facility. If you haven't been there, you definitely need to take a drive to Bellevue to take a look at it. We worked there as well. There's an interesting additional site in Bellevue that Orleans Development is a private developer that took an old factory that really was only used for storage. It was a former it made the bathroom cabinets back in the day, you know, the square ones with the mirror on the outside. That they made that. They were the first to make those, I think, way back. We worked with them to on the phase 1, had a phase 2, and they also, it's kind of a common theme that they've chosen to go through the Brownfield program as well to get that liability protection. I think that helps their economic package, their financing package. If you were a lending professional and you were wanting to lend on a site like a Brownfield site, you've got some questions, you've got some reservations. You don't know if it's safe to lend on this. Well, wouldn't it be a better situation if you were to be able to provide your lender with a letter from the state of Kentucky saying you're not responsible for the historical aspects on the site? The easy answer is yes. So I think that's really been an important update to that part of Bellevue. They've turned that into lofts and condos and things of that nature, and that they're pretty luxury from what I understand. They've done just a tremendous job there as well. One other one on a quick roll is the Carabello Coffee site in Newport. I think if I say that and you're from Northern Kentucky, you know where I'm talking about. Carabello Coffee is a known entity, commodity. Mr. Carabello is a super advocate for the community and wants to do good things there. And if you may or may not recall, there was a former bank on that corner, really was in disrepair when I got there. There was a dry cleaner that had been in the facility many years ago. They had HUD financing and their representative was in California. If you have that scenario, Mr. Carabello needed to refinance his existing loan. We worked with him to address the HUD professionals' questions in California, which being in California, you're not going to really know Kentucky's laws and everything like that. Mr. Carabello went through the process to get the notice of concurrence as well, and was able to secure the refinancing that he needed to open that very successful business. Brianna and I just met with a Campbell County representative this week there, and it's just kind of a go-to spot. So I personally feel proud of that one as well. And I'm going to switch gears real quick on the applications and whatnot. Northern Kentucky's been very successful on receiving those. It's not easy to do. Basically, they have an excellent template that they kind of already have some things in place, and then they specialize it out based upon what your specifics are and whatnot. And with their track record, that kind of helps get you over the finish line. Is it 100%? No, it's not 100%, but it is a viable funding effort. And I have a shade of inside information for you now in the fact that it is likely that the EPA, based upon the infrastructure bill that's in Washington and whatnot, pushing funding to many areas, and Brownfields is a very partisan friendly program that all sides of any aisles want to promote and push, and therefore are likely to have a mid-year, first of its kind, a mid-year application process for these types of funding. Most people won't know about that. So if you happen to have a site or whatnot that may need some cleanup work or whatnot, this might be an excellent time to jump in and say, hey, let's try to look at that. And speak with Brianna, speak with Alicia or whomever to get that going. On the responsibility factor, that's always been a hindrance for a lot of people. Whenever you say the word EPA to someone, there's some hesitancy in being transparent and forthcoming on a lot of different things, and I totally understand that. The issue is that it's your property, and at the time that you would want a transaction, there's going to be some information that's transclosed and transpired, and that's just part of it. A lot of our work is during that time when properties are transacted, and if I'm hired for the party that's looking to purchase your property, I'm going to find a lot of those things that I would be finding for you and helping you deal with. But the problem is you would, if you work with us now, you would know it now. We could work on it and address it now instead of having to potentially renegotiate your deal at the end when you wouldn't be in as favorable a position. So in my opinion, it's to your best interest to go ahead and get all of your ducks in a row and everything on top of the table to know what you're dealing with, so you're in a power position at the time that you would look to sell your property. Many municipalities feel this way. They just want to deal with it, get it on top of the table, and move forward. And they've been very successful with that. So,
Charles, I'm gonna jump in here.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the awesome tales. Just so you know, there are so many more sites that he could have told you about. I sat here, I was getting super excited listening, like, tell them about this one, or tell them about that project that was over in Kenton County. Unfortunately, we want to be respectful of everybody's time, so we have to kind of cap it. We do have one question from an actual person in attendance. I want to be respectful of their time, knowing they want to leave here soon. Right before we get to that, and then we have several questions we received in advance that we'll touch on after we've answered Mr. Tuis's question. I do want a couple things. This grant is a perfect coupling grant. In the past, this has been kind of like included in the packets for the Duke Energy Innovation Grants. This has been included in discussions with different districts that have or different communities that have TIF districts. The Brownfield funding is generally not used only on its own. The assessment funds maybe, but when it comes to cleanup funding, this is a very much a coupling funding source. So please keep that in mind, that though you have this much to use from us, generally you can use that as leveraging funds to obtain other funding you want. If you are a private developer, a private property owner, like I said, you are eligible to receive the assessment fund. So when Charles is talking about, you already own the property, so you're going to have the responsibility whether you get tested or not. At some point, somebody's going to have to deal with it. You might as well go ahead and use free funding while it's here. Right now, the federal government is definitely making it rain. They're pumping funding into every source they can, and there seems to be a pretty consistent funding source coming out of the EPA for brownfields. But as we've seen in the past, there were times where there were significant cutbacks, which did impact the amount of funding that was awarded to the ad, or there were years where the ad district did not receive awards, and it had more to do with the actual larger pool of money than it did with there not being a strong enough case. So right now is the time to do this, take advantage. This funding will not always be as strong. I think it'll always be at the ad district. I just don't know if it's always going to be as strong. So please tap into that funding now. If we start to dwindle on funds, we have the best case in the world for the ad district to put in another application and receive additional funding. So please don't hesitate. And that turnaround's much faster now since the ad district does have a long-term history working with the EPA. That turnaround isn't a year and a half like it used to be, like I described in the very beginning. The last thing I wanted to touch on was there is no shared cost for the assessments. So when you ask us to do a phase 2, like phase 1 is significantly less expensive. So that's paid for, but I think sometimes people are concerned when they do a phase 2, like, oh, this is going to be like $30,000 of work. This grant does pay for all of the phase 2 work. Now, cleanup is a little different. If we have time, we will get into our RLF program because we've evolved those funds. It's a little bit different now. It isn't necessarily that we have to do this through a lending program. That's going to be kind of based on requests we're getting from our partners in development or our communities that we serve. But before all of that, because I know Nick had a good question, and this is actually a question I think we've gotten multiple times over the years. I know that Charles can answer this very well. Charles, would a leach field be considered under this program?
That's a good question, Nick. A leach field, for those that may not know, is what I associate with that is like a septic system for your property or whatnot that's not connected to a municipal system. And the leach field basically runs out the back of the septic tank unit away from the structure usually and dissipates materials over a wide area. And historically, I have found that leach fields can be a source of contamination and impact on a property. Although it's not more than 50% for sure. You know, it's all site specific. So what I would say to that is that you would I would recommend that you go through the due diligence process, you know, a phase 1, a phase 2, et cetera. During that phase 1 process, we're going to interview folks that may be available. Again, going back to what I said, they may not be available. So those possibilities can definitely push you towards a phase 2. A phase 2 is more of an intrusive study that takes soil samples, might take groundwater samples, et cetera, to quantify if there is an impact on the property based upon those analytical results. And you can kind of take it from there. If you have more specific questions, don't hesitate to contact me.
Thank you for that answer, Charles. And thank you for the question, Nick. That's, like I said, that is not an unusual question, and it's one that we never get to answer in a forum like this. In Northern Kentucky, we have a mix of communities, everything from the urban core to extremely rural areas. I grew up in an unincorporated county, and we definitely had septic systems when I was growing up. So as we seek to make best use of our land and we seek to find places to attract business and create housing to stabilize housing security, we have to know what's in these areas as we move into the more rural areas. I think that's something we're probably going to run into. I'm sure we run into it some in the first ring suburbs too, but definitely in our more rural areas. I do want to ask Sarah Allen, Sarah, before you go, and once again, thank you so much for your time today. I know that you're working on another project, and you've contacted Bree, and Charles are doing a great job working with you. Doing what you do with Center for Great Neighborhoods, Do you foresee in the near future having other sites that potentially are going to qualify as brownfields? And I know you don't want to like disclose information,
Yeah.
but just to kind of give people an idea if they're kind of on the fence, like I'm not sure. Do you have any like can you share with us any of the sites, like maybe what they used to be or what the rumors are that it
Yeah.
used to be?
Well, for instance, we're exploring a site right now. It's city-owned land, so I'm not sure what's going to happen. But to co-develop with someone for some housing more closer to the Licking River, and we know just anecdotally, well, the site had been, I believe it was like a trailer park. We know a few things that it was prior, and we know with the water table. I mean, I'm not a geologist, but the little I know is that there's potential for contamination, especially being that close to the river with all the industry. So as we're talking to this developer, this is one of the things we've said to them is like doing your due diligence. Part of that is doing the phase 1, phase 2, because it legitimately can impact the project. And one thing I think, Charles, you and I think talked about this, but the idea of, so one of the things, like if you're closer to the river, there's, if you're going to look at how do you do your kind of get it prepped for actually putting buildings on there. And so if there was a phase 2 needed, you have to do the geotech side of it. And my question to Charles was, well, so with the geotech, you're looking for contaminants. So when they're doing the soil borings, but I also was wondering if we could look at like the composition of the soil. So looking at like how, even though that's not necessarily with contaminants, it's like, if the equipment's already in there, is there a way for the developer to pay a few $100s to get that part tested too, since they're already getting the borings? And so I think Charles was really helpful in thinking that through and just being creative with like, how do we reduce some of the costs for like a developer to do their due diligence? So that's one most recent example. I don't know where that's going to go, but that's the first thing that comes top of mind. And then, like I said, the parking lot across from our building, we're currently going through a phase 1. I don't know if we'll need a phase 2 or not, but we have been looking at ways to develop this property, and we're keep getting stuck. So we felt like just doing this at least would kind of get things moving. So that's another example of kind of just getting as much information as we can before we go for kind of a full-blown, whether it's a grant or financing, etc.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, we are running low on time. I do want to ask Charles 2 quick questions, and then I've got one final question from Bree, and Bree can kind of close us out since she's going to be the face of this program you're working with. Charles, 2 quick questions. If you have a phase 1, do you have to have a phase 2? Because this is a question we had 2 people send me, and I know we've answered that over the years together, I think many times. And then the other one is kind of like, what's the turnaround time? So like if somebody is trying to be shovel ready, especially like right now, I think the reason this question came up, there's a bunch of funding we know is coming down. The sites have to be shovel ready. What kind of turnaround time? So those 2 questions, and then one last one for Bree.
Great questions. First of all, starting with you have a phase 1 done. Do you need a phase 2? Great question. What that has to do with is, what does your phase 1 say? And also working with your environmental professional are the 2 most important things. What does it say? Recognize environmental conditions are the specific buzzword that I use, are RECs, RECs. I'll say all 3 of them different ways, but recognize environmental conditions are the items that your environmental professional has recognized on your property that you need to address. Are there underground storage tank issues? Are there soil issues? Are there groundwater contamination issues? Could there be vapor intrusion, which is really more important than those others combined, in my opinion? We can talk about that all day. But does your phase 1 say that you have an issue, those RECs? If it does have RECs or recognize environmental conditions, then I would recommend that you go to a phase 2 and or work with the Brownfield program. Now that's I've hit you with a lot right there. I would recommend that you speak with your environmental professional about that on the specific path for that. But straight question, if you have a phase 1, if it has recognized environmental conditions, would you go to a phase 2? Just that question right there, the answer is yes. The phase 2 would then be focused on and geared towards completing, addressing those phase one concerns and hopefully wrapping them up. If you wrap them up, then you're done. If you wrap up the phase one issues in your phase two, then you're done. Or does your phase two tell you you have an issue or not? And then you can deal with that, but it depends specifically on what the issue is, how contaminated or not contaminated it might be to address those things. Moving on to the turnaround time, we try to be very sensitive to our clients' needs. If it's really, you know, I've got to get this done before so the lender can approve us by Friday, you know, or is it, but typically it's around a 2-week turn. That depends on some of our turnaround times from some of our database searches and things like that, and then access to the property, conducting a site visit, things of that nature. But typically roughly a 2-week time frame or 3-week time frame. But if you communicate with your environmental professional, most of the time they're willing to try to accommodate what you need. That's it.
Perfect, Charles. Thank you so much. I've got one last question for Bree, but before we do that, because I know Sarah and Charles both have probably meetings back to back because they're both busy and always doing awesome stuff. I want to say thank you to Sarah Allen and Charles Leachman. Working with the both of you is always a privilege. We are so grateful you took time out of your busy schedules to talk to us. If people have follow-up questions, is it okay if we send them to you? Nod. Yeah. Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, once again, thank you for attending. To everybody attending, we appreciate you. For everybody watching in the aftermath that when we post or share this, we appreciate you watching. You can look in the I think the chat that Bree said she was going to post her information. I thank you for being here personally, because this is a near and dear project to me. On our way out, and before Bree says goodbye to everybody, I wanted to ask Bree, we had a question. We mentioned earlier we have an RLF fund. That's a revolving loan fund. This was cleanup funds that the Brownfield or the NKADD received. I want to say in 2011, 2012, it was a large sum of money. This money was granted out, a small portion, to local governments and nonprofits that qualified and met certain thresholds. And then the rest of it was lent out at an extremely low rate to governments and also private sector property owners and developers. That funding had at one point all been lent out. However, it's a revolving loan fund. So as the money's paid back in, this money is technically supposed to build back up and can be used again. Bree, the last question was, is there any money in the RLF program?
Yeah, there is. So I'm still waiting to hear back from finance on that exact number because there have been several payments. So if anybody does necessarily want to know specifically, I can definitely send out an email with all of that information. And yeah.
Well, then one last question, Bree. If I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you've been diving into this and I've been gone for a little bit. The last time I looked, if that money revolved once, it looked like after that, it could be used in a different way as long as it's for brownfields. So am I correct in thinking that if there were projects and we had some kind of program, we could potentially grant out the money instead of having to lend it a second time? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So people should probably contact you if they have some sites that they're interested in cleaning up, just to get on the board and be ready in case that money is available.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bree. And I guess we're wrapping up, so I'm going to do it. I have to. Hooday.
All right. Yeah, if there are no other questions or comments, you can just email me. Again, all of my contact information is in the chat box. And I also want to thank everyone for joining us. And I really appreciate Sarah and Charles' time. You guys were a great addition to this forum that we had and answered a lot of questions. So yeah, I hope that this was informative and resourceful, and we will have this recording posted on our website.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.